Hey everyone, Mario again coming at you with another episode of the Undertaker Streak-A-Thon. We are now at the 7th match, The Undertaker versus his brother Kane. Now, like I said at the end of the Psycho Sid one, the events of WrestleMania 13 tied into the events of WrestleMania 14. Not directly, but it set the stage for it. Taker won the WWE title at 13. He held the title for a handful of months before he lost the title to Bret Hart, partially because of Shawn Michaels, because Michaels was a special guest referee, and he accidentally waffled Taker with a chair, and it's one of those things, you cost me the title, Shawn. Now you will rest in peace. The feud eventually led to the first ever Hell in a Cell match, where Taker just beat the holy hell out of Shawn. And then at the end, the debut of Kane. He comes in, he rips the door right off the cell, which had not been done in a long time in any company up until this point, but since then has been prostituted to death, as Jim Cornette would say. Kane comes face to face with Taker, tombstones the shit out of him. Michaels comes in for the cover, pins him, and that ends that feud. Now, Kane, is after revenge for Taker burning their parents to the ground and basically wants to face Taker, but Taker's like, I will not fight my own flesh and blood. And he continues this for months. Then, at one point, when he is getting jumped, Kane comes out. It seems like it's going to be a brotherly reunion, or as I think it was JR called it, a reconciliation, where Kane, when he's out on the ramp, extends his hand, and Taker does the sit-down tongue thing in return. Kane was only luring Taker into a false sense of security, because in the casket match, that is also infamous for being the match that basically caused Shawn Michaels to go on a 4-year hiatus because of how he landed on top of the casket, they trapped Taker inside, they being Kane and Paul Bearer, put gasoline on it, and set it on fire, with the intent of killing Taker. Well, this is the last straw for Taker, as he says, I felt your fury, now you're gonna feel mine. Now note, I have my computer right here, so I'm going to have some stats I have to read off for this. It took place on March 29, 1998, from the Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts. The attendance was 19,028, which is a pretty good attendance for WrestleMania. Business was going up at this point. It had the semi-main spot, and it went 17 minutes and 5 seconds, which was the second longest match of the night, with only the main event being longer. Our announcers were a face JR and a heel Lawler, which is probably the best combination of those two. And this is around the time where they were at the peak of portraying those characters and the commentary that they do during the match. Now, before the match begins, who should come out but baseball? Before the match begins, who should come out but Pete Rose, WWE Hall of Famer in the celebrity wing. A couple years after this, though, but this is one of his things. He comes out, and you think he's going to get cheered because he's a celebrity? Nope. He starts really playing the heel to the fans. He says a lot of stuff. This is the one that really starts getting the boos from him. Last time I was here, we kicked your ass! And it goes from there. He says some other stuff, but that's the one that really gets the boos starting. Well, who should come out but Kane, and Kane takes him to Tombstone City. And Kane gets cheered for this now. This is something we probably wouldn't really see nowadays, but then again, with how the booking is, you never know. But this was during the Russo era of booking. I don't know if he was actually in charge or not at this point, but this is around that time. So you're going to see why they did something like this. Kane tombstones him, and fans cheer him. Mixed reaction. It's a mixed message sort of thing because he's a heel. But like I said, era fits. Well, that's the only time Kane gets cheered throughout the whole night. It's basically a thank you. And because of them having Pete Rose do this, it was kind of a cheap pop situation. Now, there are a lot of interesting spots that happen throughout the match, which I did make notations of here. At one point, Taker did his usual over-the-top rope dive thing that he does, usually at WrestleMania. Kane dodges it, and Taker goes right into the announce table, like, ooh! And that turned the tide of the match in Kane's favor for a little bit. And, of course, both of them do get a diving clothesline during the match. Kane earlier on, and Taker actually leads into the finish, but I'll touch on that later. Now, as you would expect from these two, there are a lot of tombstones being used. The first tombstone attempt of the night, Kane reversed it and did one of his own, but Taker kicked out. Taker then chokeslammed Kane, and as he's going to do stuff after that, Paul Bearer's on the outside going, damn you! Damn you! what I love about these matches with Paul Bearer's involved, because he really sells on the outside. Damn you! Damn you! Well, Kane sits up all Michael Myers style, and he gets his first tombstone of the night. And as they put it on commentary, Kane has been drilled! He kicks out, and as JR puts it, no one has ever kicked out of the Undertaker's tombstone. It was a big deal. This shows what happens when you protect the finisher for years. By this point, I think people had kicked out of the chokeslam, but as far as I know, no one has ever kicked out of the tombstone, you know, right when he's gone for the cover. Maybe if he's, like, been delayed with going for the cover, but no one. Even Hogan didn't kick out of the tombstone. Granted, his was onto a steel chair, but he let Taker protect the finish. Even to add to it, on commentary they go, even Paul Bearer can't believe it. Which would make sense. Paul managed Taker for years, so he would know what the tombstone is capable of. So he would not be able to believe it. But remember, this is The Undertaker's brother. He is almost as invulnerable as Taker himself, so he should be able to kick out of a tombstone. A second tombstone soon follows this, and Kane kicks out again. And like with the first one on commentary, they have some good lines. He's trying to kill his own brother, JR. He's a monster, JR. Selling up the fact that no one's ever kicked out of one tombstone, but to kick out of two. They're really building up Kane as an indestructible monster here by having him kick out of the Undertaker's finish twice. Now there's a little bit more of an exchange. Then Taker does the flying clothesline, which leads to the third tombstone of the night. And Taker finally gets the pin. But to also slightly protect Kane, they have him kick out right after the pin. Now there are times where this is a good idea. This is one of them. And there are times where it does kind of steal a little bit of the moment. And that would be Warrior Hogan at WrestleMania. But that's a whole other thing. But we all know the whole thing about that match. I'm not going to get into it here. But that one is a little less of a time to do it. This is more of a time to do it when you're trying to build up someone as a monster. You probably didn't really need it because you already had him kick out of two. But to show he's still even more of a monster with what you can do after the match, having him kick out like a moment or two after the 3 count works. Now, once the match is over, Paul goes out of the ring, gets a steel chair. Taker's still reeling from all the abuse of the match. Paul gets him in the corner and starts, stomping a mud hole in him, but it's Paul Bearer, so it's not going to be super effective. Then Taker finally gets up. He's going to go after Paul. Kane gets over. He attacks Taker with the chair. And as Lawler put it, he tried to drive him right down to hell. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. And as JR stamps back, this is a war. There will be casualties. Kane then tombstones Taker right onto the chair, which is a good thing they did this post-match, because if they did this during the match, there's no way you could argue for Taker kicking out of that. Whenever someone does the finisher onto a chair, that should be the finish right there in the match. Unless you're going to have some distraction or whatnot, and then the match keep going. But if it's going to go from doing it to a pin attempt, it's just an annoyance. Like I had last year when they had Dean Ambrose. Forget the specifics of it, but it's just one thing that stuck in my craw. That was the only thing about the match I did not like. Following the chair thing, Paul Bearer takes Kane to the back, and as he's doing this, JR says, "I've seen wars between smaller countries with less intensity than this." And of course, as Taker sits up, the fans cheer, and as that ending tells you, this is only going to be the beginning of the fight between these two brothers, which of course, we all know it continued. It continued off and on for years, of course, around this time, where we ended up having that Inferno match where Kane's arm was set on fire, amongst other things. Of course, eventually led to the vegetative state years later, but that's down the old road. On the whole, this match was pretty good. Out of all of Taker's matches with big men at Mania at this point, this is definitely the best one, and that's because I'd say that Glenn is a worker on the same level as Taker, especially at this point in his career. And the story they had with it was amazing. I'd argue this is probably Taker's best Mania match at this point. It's kind of hard to argue whether I like this or the Jake match better, but I'd say probably this one, because the Jake match had that storyline reason for the two butting heads, and of course Jake's psychology and all that. But the brother versus brother aspect of this match just puts this over the top for me. So I'd say this is definitely the better of the first 10 matches, if you're going to compare those two. Of course, we all know what the worst ones would be, but I'm going to save, top 5, top for both worst and best till I'm done with this whole streak thing. But so far, this is my favorite of all the matches. Now, of course, we're going to a match that I've always heard a lot of bad things about, but I had never watched. Well, we're going to see what my thoughts are when Taker has to serve hard time.